This is DJ Ken J from Ken J Audio. Welcome to I Want to Be a DJ. Last week we talked about the media playback component of your setup and how important it is. And I left you with the recommendation to go with a controller and laptop as two separate pieces instead of doing one of the all-in-one units. So this week I have three different styles of controllers that I'm going to discuss with you that will all make good options for you to purchase as you get started DJing. So give me just a second and let me get everything set up and then we'll get started. Now we're going to talk about controllers. Like I told you before, your clients don't know, they don't care about name brands of controllers or software. So with you starting off, I highly recommend that you stick with the free versions of the software that you get with the controller. Whether it be Virtual DJ, DJ Tractor, Serato, whatever the case may be, stick with the free version for now while you're in the learning phase of DJing. And then as you graduate to getting bigger gigs that are paying more, and there's some extra features that you may need, like you may need video or to do karaoke, then you can consider upgrading to a professional version of the software. But for now, stick with the free version. The controllers I have are three different controllers, and they're all unique. And I'm going to tell you about each one of them. Now, this is the one, or one like it, that I recommend, because remember I told you you want to have a clean setup when you first start DJing, because you don't want a whole bunch of buttons or knobs that you have to try to figure out how to navigate, especially when you are in the middle of a live event. So if you notice, this is a Numark Mixtrack Pro. This is an older one. They have newer ones, and the newer ones are clean as well. They're just set up different. And as you see, this has a hot cue section on it with 3 hot cues, effects, a loop section. You have your pitch bend as well as your tempo control. The new one, the hot cue buttons are down in this section where you see your playback starter and cue. So that's the difference with the new one. And this one has a basic 3-band EQ with the treble, your mid-range, your bass. You have the EQ section where you can load tracks. And this is a 2-channel, 2-deck controller. Very clean, very simple, a good controller to learn with. And you can get one of these on eBay for around $200, well, around $100, $100 to $150. Like I said, it's a solid controller. This controller has taken a lot of abuse. I still keep it around. I use it to practice with, so it stays at home. Like I said, very good controller. And Pioneer and some other brands, they have controllers that are just as clean. So as I tell everyone when they ask me what controller to get, my advice is to go to your local store, Sam Ash, Guitar Center, whatever local store you have that has a setup for DJs, and they have controllers so that you can actually put your hands on the controller, feel it, touch the jog wheel, see how you like it, see how the layout feels to you. And if they can hook it up and let you play around with it, that'll be even better. Now this is a Pioneer DJ. I'm not sure if they pronounce it Ergo or Ergo, but this is an excellent controller. Now this controller is of a different configuration. This is a 2-channel, 4-deck controller. What do I mean by 2 channels and 4 decks? Well, you notice there's 2 channels here, okay? But when you look here, let me get that in focus for you. You see it has a C and an A deck on the left side, and then there's a B and a D deck on the right side. Now this controller has a considerable amount more buttons than the Numark Mixtrack Pro I showed you, because this one has sampler controllers on it. Now it has more hot cues on it, but it also has sampler. And if you have a professional version of Serato or one of the other DJ softwares, they have a built-in sampler, so you'll be able to control sample playback and volume with the controller as opposed to having to use the computer. And you see it has an effects section, and it has a basic EQ, your high, mid, and low, and your gain, and it also has your playback and your cue, and your load section is up there. Okay, it's a nice controller. Now the free software that you get with this controller is only going to control 2 decks. If you want to control 4 decks, this controller, with this controller, you would have to get the professional software. Starting out, I don't recommend that you try to control 4 decks, especially with this controller. And give me a second, I'm gonna go off camera, I'm gonna stop the camera so that I can put it on Serato, and I'm going to show you why you may not want to try to control 4 decks with this controller as a new DJ. So give me just a second, let me put the camera on the stand and get it focused on the screen. Okay, so we have our Pioneer DDJ Ergo set up, and as you can see, I have Serato set up, and I have a couple of songs loaded in Serato, and I don't have them loaded in decks 1 and 2 or A and B on the controller because I want to show you the operation of how this works using the 4 decks or using 2 decks on the same side, and why you want to be cautious of doing so. Now, as I mentioned before, this controller is 2 channels, but it has 4 decks, and that's why Serato has 4 decks. Now, like I told you before, start off with the free software that they give you. Now, when you start off with the free software, it won't come with 4 decks. I don't think any of them do. I know Serato doesn't. But just in case you decide to buy Serato DJ Pro and you want to take advantage of using all 4 decks, this is what you have to be cautious of. And like I told you, starting off, you get nervous during gigs. You have people making requests, and you have people bugging you, things going on. So this can be a little cumbersome, and I'm going to show you why. Now, if you notice, I have deck A, which corresponds to deck 1 in Serato. I have that selected, and you could tell because in Serato, as you see the blue boxes around deck 1, and you see deck A lit up on the controller. Now, when I choose deck 3 or C as it is on the controller, you notice that the box in Serato changes to deck 3, and it's the same thing on the other side. Deck B has the blue box around it, which corresponds to deck 2 in Serato, and if I switch it to deck 4 in Serato, which is C or D on the controller, you notice that the blue box changes. Now, I have a couple of songs loaded in Serato, and this is my personal music. Did this so that we don't have any copyright issues with YouTube using other people's songs. So I'm going to play this song, and I'm going to select deck A. And when I start this, you may or may not hear anything because I was just on deck C. Let me see if you hear anything when I hit play. Okay, so yes, you do. Now here's where the operation gets cumbersome, because I have full control over the volume of A right now. But notice what happens when I switch to deck C and I play. You don't hear anything. That's because the volume is still controlling A when I switch it to deck C. Now, for me to gain control over that volume, I have to turn it down and I turn it back up. Now you notice you hear deck C or 3, okay? And then I have to remember to go to A and stop it and turn it down. Now I have back control of deck C, but you notice the volume's down, but it didn't change the volume because the volume is still set in the program where I had it last. So I have to turn it down, turn it back up. Now that's where it gets a little cumbersome. So if you do get a professional version of Serato or Rekordbox or one of the other softwares, Virtual DJ, because you want to utilize the 4 decks. Make sure that you practice with this because you don't want to get to a gig and have an issue. Also, it will be advisable to make sure that when you load songs, you mix from side to side and not try to mix from one side to the other because you only have that one volume fader. So if you start a song, you can't quickly turn down the volume or fade the volume of the other one while you bring up the volume of the one that you're trying to mix in. So always mix side to side on a 2-channel controller when you're doing 4 decks. And 4 deck controllers are lovely. I love using them, especially for wedding receptions because they have a lot of transitions. You had a wedding party coming in. You have special dances with the bride and the groom, the mother and the son, the father and the daughter. You have all these special dances, and it never fails. They come up to you at the last minute. They don't give you any warning. Oh, we get ready to do this dance. Oh, the bridal party's here. And when you get the song queued up, you're waiting, you don't see anyone. And so you go, it's like, well, I thought you said you were ready. Oh, give us a second. And now you have dead space at your gig. And like I said, you don't want dead space at your gig. That's why a 4-channel controller is good, because you can always keep those transitional songs loaded up in your auxiliary decks. Here will be 3 and 4 or C and D. And with 1 and 2, you can continue to mix until they actually are ready for whatever that transitional period is, a special dance. And also with Serato and the other softwares, you notice I have these crates here on the side. When I'm getting ready for a gig, I know I have a gig coming up, I get my crates ready. I load songs into those crates. And if you notice here, the Stewart crate, I have another crate within that crate for special songs. Now, these were songs that this client wanted to be played during specific times of the event that I was doing. And I can't remember what the event was. I don't remember if it was a wedding or what it was, but they wanted certain songs played during transitional periods or different spots in the program. So I had those loaded into a crate that said special songs. That way, when they were ready for them, I could click on it, go right to those songs. Now, you can easily do a search for whatever the song is, but sometimes when you do a search for a song, it may bring up several different versions of the song, and you may have more than one version in there. You may be looking for a specific one, or it may bring up same song name by different artists. So it just makes it a little bit more cumbersome to try to search, especially when you're trying to do it in a hurry. So it's better to set your crate up and have all of your songs that you want to use, especially if you're getting ready for the gig and you have some songs in mind and you say, oh, you know what, this song will go well with this one, and you practice the mix, and then you get to the gig and you forget it. And that happens often. I will go through songs in my head. I may even practice mixing some of them, and then I get to the gig, and when I go live, I forget. I'm like, oh man, what song was that I said I was going to try to mix in with this one, because they went perfectly together. So that's another reason why it's good to set your crates and get your song set up. And you can make as many sub crates within your crate as you need to. You can have one for dance, one for dinner music, however you want to do it, but utilize your crates. And you have that capability even in the free versions of the software that you'll get with your controller. You'll be able to set up crates. And like I said, it's just a wonderful tool to take advantage of. All right, so that's a brief overview of the 4-channel the 4-deck controller, not 4-channel, 4-deck controller with 2 channels. Now I'm going to transition and show you a 4-channel controller that controls 4 decks. And we won't do a Serato overview with it, but I'll just talk you through some of the features of an actual 4-channel 4-deck controller. Okay, this is my Numark N4. This is an older style controller, but this is the controller that I use to DJ with. And this controller, yes, it's older, but I love this controller. I absolutely love it. And the reason that I absolutely love it is because you see it has 4 channels and it controls 4 decks. The fader section is assignable, so you can assign faders 1, 2, 3, 4 to whichever side you want it to, and that's on either side. And you see the EQ section, basic 3-band EQ, treble, mid, and bass. And you have your hot cue section, and you also have sample control. So if you want to control samples in Serato, you can control them, and you can control the volume. And these buttons are programmable, and the other controllers are programmable as well within Serato and the other softwares. You also have a booth and separate master control volume. You have your control volume for your cueing, so that you can hear more of the cue or more of the mix. And I absolutely love this controller because it's 4 channels. And the reason that I like a 4-channel controller is because, like I showed you with the Pioneer, it's a little cumbersome trying to run 4 channels on it because of the way the volume situation is set up, where if you start playing on a track on a different deck that you loaded, you have to remember to turn the volume up or down. Here you don't have to remember that. And also with the load section, as you see, you have a different load button for each channel. 1, 2, 3, or 4. And you see that you switch decks here onto it. That's how you switch from deck 1 to deck 3, deck 2 to deck 4. So it's laid out a little differently. And another reason that I like the actual 4-channel controller is because if you want to do a quick setup without a mixer, and you have microphones, and you have an iPad or iPhone plugged in, or some other type of auxiliary equipment that you have plugged in, you can use 2 channels to mix. And as you see here, I'll get this in focus for you, channel 3, you can switch the input to line, which on the back there's a line in. Also for turntables as well. So if you have a turntable you want to hook up, you can use this mixer for that as well. And channel 4 has line input as well. And this microphone section is completely separate, so it doesn't use up any of your channels to plug in a microphone. So you can have a microphone, you can have an auxiliary source plugged in, which is nice. I do that often. I'll plug in my iPhone, and that way once I set my mixer up, I can start playing music from my iPhone while I'm setting my computer up. And at the end of the night, when I start breaking down, I want to take my computer down and start taking some other things down, I can just play from my phone, because this acts as a standalone mixer without the use of a computer. Now it's not an all-in-one. It's not a self-contained unit because it doesn't have any inputs for USB to connect the thumb drive or hard drive, but it is a standalone mixer. Now the only thing I will tell you about using this as a standalone mixer, which I don't do it all the time, it's only if I have a gig where I know I don't have any performances and it's just a basic setup where I just need a basic wireless mic and just me DJing. That's the only time I use this on its own. If you're doing any gigs where you have a performance and you have people singing or you have different instrumentation, or if it's a wedding, you may want to use a mixer. And the reason that you want to use a mixer is because the mixers have XLR inputs. Now, if you notice, this does not have an XLR input. I use an adapter to go from a 1/4 inch or from an XLR to a 1/4 inch, because if you come out of the instrument output of your wireless microphone receiver into this, the microphone sound is going to be so low. It's going to be very low. You always want to use your XLR output from your microphone so that you can get maximum volume. So you wind up having to use an adapter. So that's what I do. I go XLR to 1/4 inch and then I still get full volume from my microphone. Another issue, and the reason I recommend using a mixer, especially if you have some people performing, if you notice, all you have is a bass and treble control for your microphone. And sometimes that does not cut it. You have to have more control over EQ so that you can control the situation with the feedback. So that's another reason why you may want to have a mixer in your setup when you're doing gigs that require a little bit more, like I said, you have performances, or you may be doing a wedding where you have a professional photographer or videographer, and they may want a feed from your setup. It's better if you feed them from a mixer. But all in all, this controller is good. Now, if you want to start off with a 4-channel controller, you can do so. This controller used still is expensive. I had to hunt high and low to find one for a cheap price, and I finally at Guitar Center found one for $125. Still don't know how I found it so cheap. Why it was so cheap? Because it was in excellent condition when I got it. This was a controller that I had been looking at for years and years and years. I had an N6 before. It was same configuration, same setup, very good controller. But I wound up selling it. It was a little heavy because it was a metal controller, had metal jog wheels. And as you see, like I said, the older style controllers, nice size jog wheels on them, and they're very fluid. They don't have any resistance. And so that's what I like about them. Now, a newer 4-style controller is gonna cost you anywhere from $600 on up. The Numark MV is a 4-channel controller. Pioneer has some 4-channel controllers. Pioneer's 4-channel controllers are rather pricey, but very good controllers. Denon has some 4-channel controllers, some of the other brands. But you're gonna pay quite a bit of money for 4-channel controllers. So if you want a 4-channel controller to be able to do gigs without using a mixer, when you have those smaller gigs, then you can hunt for one of these used. Like I said, it's still probably going to cost you $200 or $300, but it'll be worth the investment. However, my recommendation still is to go to something like this. Okay, so that does it on our review of controllers. As I mentioned before, the 3 styles of controllers I show you are controllers that will be great for you to learn on, and they should be relatively inexpensive for you to purchase used. Next week, we're going to talk about the next crucial piece of your DJ setup, which are your speakers. And we're going to go over some specifications of speakers that you should look for when purchasing speakers so that you make sure you have great sound on your DJ gigs. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you again on I Want to Be a DJ.